Welcome to another Rural Reflections Calling Dave podcast, co-hosted by my brother Dave Nelson in Carrington, North Dakota, and myself, Grant Nelson, here self-quarantined in the newsroom at Thief River Falls Radio. Hello, Dave. How are you doing?
Not too bad.
Glad to hear it. You know, I was thinking about this COVID-19 coronavirus. It's been something throughout all of time, and certainly as kids, we were vaccinated for a lot of different things. One thing that sticks out in my mind is polio. When they vaccinated us for that, we got a little sugar cube with a little drop of the vaccine on it.
Yeah, that was the icing on the cake for all the rest of them, the smallpox and the TB and all those different vaccines that we had. You know, some of them were a little painful. The shot was a little painful, and some of the smallpox ones that were, I think they got an air injected shot. That's why a lot of people have this little circle on their arm, you know.
Yep, looks like a little tattoo.
Yeah, it looks like a little tattoo. They always warned you, don't move, because if you move, it'll make a mark, you know. And so it was kind of big deal. They'd put us on the bus and take us to Warren, to the county seat, and line us up and run us through the line and shoot you in the arm and give you a shot in the other arm and give you a sugar cube. I think that was the final version of that. You know, you had to have the shot, and then you had the booster that was in the sugar cube, I believe.
Yeah, because taking an air-powered gun and putting it up to the shoulder of a little child will never cause them to wriggle or move at all. They'll hold perfectly still for something like that.
Oh, yeah, especially when you're in line. You're watching the kid in front of you screaming his head off.
Yeah, the anticipation just gets worse and worse.
Yeah, I know.
Well, this too will pass in time. We had an open house at High Plains Equipment, and we were talking about it before we got on the air here today, and it was pretty successful. Why don't you tell us a little bit about it, if you would?
Yeah, I was just the first one as High Plains Equipment Company for us, and so we were wondering, you know, would we get a good turnout, would we not, or whatever. And it turned out real well. I think we had about 40 people for the sprayer clinic, and we had a wonderful meal from the Schoolhouse Cafe in Grey City, and it just turned out real good. It was a nice day, and the weather was beautiful that day.
And you introduced or talked a little bit about the AFS system at this open house, didn't you?
Yes, we did. We had a few minutes on that, and then the whole idea of AFS, which is, you know, each machine plays its part in that, combine and recording data, you know, the tractor that controls the depth of the implement, and all the recorded information that's transferred then to your home computer for mapping and so on. So, yeah, we had a little session on that. We don't have a tractor yet, but there are several of them coming now. And it's going to be interesting because our guys are all testing on it now because we have to have our certification up ahead of time before they ship the tractor, you know. Too bad it's such a kind of a downer time in agriculture because it's really a kind of an upward thing for us introducing all these new products. But I guess they'll all be ready to go fully by the time the markets rebound and stuff, so maybe it'll be a good thing. We'll practice with them a little bit while the markets are down and then sell the heck out of them when it comes back.
Yeah, you get the bugs worked out. Probably won't even be any bugs. Is there going to be an interface for any kind of a drone for doing field scouting for mapping, or are they not that far along yet? Or
well, there is already. You know, you can use your drone as part of your solution. It goes into the map. You can download whatever information you want to put there. So if you want weed scouting in a certain area, you know, you look for weeds in that area. So you can use the drone already, but I don't know what part it's going to play. You know, when the first AFS thing started happening, we were going to do everything. We were going to do zone mapping, zone building, zone this, everything, you know, you sample everything. And it cost about $30, $40 an acre to do that. And then it turned out that you could use topo maps for almost all of it and photographic imaging, you know, to come up with a solution for how much fertilizer to put on and where you need to watch for weeds and stuff like that, which simplified it a lot. So I'm sure this will, you know, start out complicated and then get simpler as it goes too.
Always starts out real idealistic, any of this kind of stuff, and then after a little realism hits you in the face, the engineers got to kind of bow to reality, I think, sometimes, you know? Now, we always go with the high-tech stuff, and I think we have to kind of retreat back to a little lower tech, and I can say this because I've had a couple of these. There's not too much lower tech than a Belarus tractor. We were going to talk a little bit about those for our tractor of the week, weren't we?
Yeah, and I don't even know the models of them, but when I worked in Thief River Falls, I worked on two of them quite regularly. They were at the alfalfa pelleting plant there, and they were an interesting tractor. They leaked all over the place, had strange threads on them. They were not British standard. They were not metric, or they were kind of a mixture of some form of metric and standard. And so I got to learn a lot about kind of re-engineering or making do with whatever you could get to fix those. And we could get parts. You know, the guy would bring parts in and so on, but it was just that the tractors ran. They were efficient as far as fuel and so on. They did the job, but you kept them together. It was kind of haywire and a wish and a prayer to keep them going. You know, but they did a job, just not like what we were necessarily used to. The engineering was pretty crude on them, and the systems on them were kind of cumbersome and that. But like I say, they had a place. I know you ran one, or maybe two of them, didn't you?
Yeah, I had two of them. My memories are you were supposed to use motor oil in the hydraulic system, and I tried synthetic motor oil one time in the hydraulic system, and it literally beat me to the back of the tractor, leaking out of the hose or out of the couplings. The first time I turned the tractor on, it pressurized, and I came out the back, and I could already see hydraulic fluid leaking out the back, so I went back to straight 30 hydraulic fluid, even in the wintertime, and then I did pretty well. I mean, you had to add a quart probably every probably eight times I ran it. But with the synthetic, it just ran out the back.
Yeah, they were kind of loosely engineered. I mean, there was a lot of crude kind of things. I mean, you had to have a super thick gasket on some of the things, otherwise you couldn't get it to seal because the surfaces weren't flat. The front wheel assist on the ones that I was around were really interesting and odd. But like I say, he made do with them and eventually got rid of them and got some Ford tractors then after that.
Now, you were telling me that Belarus is still active in the tractor market in the United States.
Yeah, they are. There's still a little Russian interference in our agricultural tractors. They are actually a Canadian company. The company called Rosselmesh has bought out Versatile Tractors and a bunch of other ag companies. They're putting together still a kind of a lower class of tractor. I shouldn't call it class, but a tractor that's a little less engineered and that kind of thing. Just kind of a more practical machine for people that don't want all the extra goodies. But they're still there. Belarus was the company that had those first little tractors, and then this is a big Russian company. I don't know all the details of it, but they're involved. Their big involvement was with harvesters, and actually I've seen several of their combines that have been through the area, and they are super crude. I don't know how they work, but they're really crude. But they kind of look like one of our combines, but that's where it ends.
Technology more in tune with the late 70s through maybe the early 90s and not necessarily 2020. Well, the Belarus is, my first Belarus I had was a front wheel assist, and I remember the thing I did. I'd never had a front wheel assist tractor, and I just gotten stuck with my two-wheel drive, so I went out and drove through the mud just to prove I could. But yes, they were an awfully crude tractor. Had a lot of little quirks to them, that's for sure. Kind of like having a quirky friend who's really strong, but doesn't always like to come to work on time. That's kind of what they were like.
Yeah, that's pretty close.
Anything else for us this week, Dave?
I guess not. We're hoping it warms up a little bit here now. It's gotten cold again, so we're looking towards spring. We lost a lot of snow this last week. It looks good. We're seeing brown spots all over the place, and we have geese standing on the ice waiting for the water to melt now. So we're waiting for the ice to melt and turn to water. So
imagine you're looking at
close.
probably looking at a spring with a lot of vertical tillage and a lot of beans going into corn stubble, huh?
A lot of problems with how are you going to get fertilizer on, and there was absolutely, I'd have to say there was just virtually no fall field work done here last year. It was just not possible, So it's going to be a busy spring.
Well, we'll keep our fingers crossed. Dave, thanks very much, and we'll talk to you next week, okay?
All right, see you, Grant.
See ya. There he is, my brother Dave, on our Rural Reflections, Calling Dave, co-hosted with Dave Nelson in Carrington, North Dakota, myself, Grant Nelson, here at the studios of Thief River Falls Radio.